Deceiving an INFJ is one of the most dangerous emotional mistakes a person can make. Not because INFJs are quick to anger, but because deception touches the deepest part of what they value most, their authenticity, trust, and emotional integrity. When you deceive an INFJ, you are not simply breaking a promise or telling a lie. You are tearing apart a sacred bond that they built with their whole heart. INFJs do not build relationships lightly. For them, truth is the foundation of relationships, and once that foundation cracks, the entire relationship begins to collapse from within. One of the primary reasons you should never deceive an INFJ is because they have a high level of emotional intelligence. They can read between the lines, sense hidden motives, and perceive inconsistencies in behavior or speech. Even when they don't confront you immediately, they already know something is wrong. Their intuition is not a guessing game. It's a finely tuned internal compass that rarely fails. INFJs might give you the benefit of the doubt for a while, pretending not to notice the deception, but that doesn't mean they're blind to it. In truth, they're observing, processing, and evaluating everything quietly. The moment they confirm the deceit, their perception of you shifts forever. You can apologize, explain, or even cry, but they will never see you in the same light again. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Playbook today. The link is in the description of this video. INFJs invest their energy deeply in people. When they trust you, they open up in ways they rarely do with anyone else. Their trust is sacred. It takes time to earn and even longer to deserve. To deceive them is to trample on something they built with vulnerability and courage. Once that trust is broken, they don't rebuild it easily. They may forgive you, but forgiveness does not equal restoration. Their love becomes guarded, their warmth turns cold, and their once open heart begins to close like a door slowly locking from the inside. What you lose is not just their affection, but their emotional presence, the very essence of what makes an INFJ's love so transformative. Another reason deception cuts so deeply for INFJs is that they live by a strong moral compass. They hold themselves to high standards of honesty, empathy, and fairness. When someone they care about deceives them, it throws their world off balance. They begin to question not only the other person's integrity, but also their own judgment. They ask themselves, how did I not see this coming? Or, why did I trust this person? The pain of betrayal lingers not just because of what you did, but because they feel they failed themselves by believing in you. This inner conflict can spiral into deep self-reflection, where they retreat emotionally and distance themselves from you to protect their inner peace. INFJs also experience deception differently because of the way their minds and hearts are wired. They process emotions on multiple levels: what they feel, what you feel, and what lies beneath both. When you deceive them, it's not a single wound. It's a layered injury that hits them mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They replay moments, analyze your words, and search for meaning in your actions long after the deception has been uncovered. While some people can move on after being lied to, INFJs internalize the pain, dissecting it until they understand why it happened. This process is exhausting for them, and the only way to stop the inner turmoil is often to walk away completely. Deceiving an INFJ also awakens a side of them that many people never see. INFJs are kind, gentle, and forgiving, but once hurt, they can become emotionally distant and ice-cold. They will withdraw their love, their empathy, and their presence so completely that it feels as if they vanish from your world. This silent withdrawal is not revenge, it is self-preservation. INFJs understand the power of emotional boundaries, and when their trust is broken, they enforce those boundaries without compromise. You may try to reach them, to reason with them, to reignite what was lost, but once they've detached, you'll realize that the warmth they once gave so freely is gone for good. INFJs also see deception as an act of disrespect. It's not just the lie itself, but the implication that you thought they were too naive to notice. It insults their intelligence and underestimates their intuition. When you deceive them, you are essentially telling them that their perception of reality is invalid, and for an INFJ, that's a deep psychological offense. They pride themselves on understanding people at a profound level, So realizing that someone has been playing games behind their back shatters something sacred inside them. INFJs have a natural aversion to pretense and manipulation. They crave depth and despise superficiality. When they discover they've been deceived, it confirms their greatest fear, that people cannot be trusted to be real. This revelation can push them into solitude, making them retreat from the world for a while. During this time, they may rebuild their strength, focus on personal growth, or even reinvent themselves. But one thing is certain: they emerge changed. The person who deceived them will never again hold the same space in their heart. There's also a karmic undertone to deceiving an INFJ. They often operate with a strong sense of universal justice. They may not seek revenge, but they believe life has a way of balancing the scales. When they let you go, they do it with quiet dignity, knowing that truth eventually reveals itself. And when it does, it exposes the deceiver far more painfully than any confrontation ever could. What makes deceiving an INFJ even more tragic is that they would have accepted the truth if you had simply been honest with them. INFJs have a remarkable capacity for understanding human flaws. They don't expect perfection, they expect sincerity. They would rather face a painful truth than live in a beautiful lie. Deceiving them not only robs them of the truth, it robs you of the chance to experience their empathy in its purest form. INFJs love deeply, think deeply, and see deeply. When you lie to them, you're not just breaking their trust, you're breaking something in yourself too. You're destroying a connection that could have been one of the most genuine, transformative experiences of your life. An INFJ's heart is a rare treasure, and once it's betrayed, it never opens the same way again. Deception doesn't just end a relationship. It leaves a haunting silence where once there was light, understanding, and unconditional love. INFJs are not naive. They know that people make mistakes. But when someone deliberately chooses deceit over honesty, it tells them everything they need to know about your character. And once they know, they never forget. They may forgive in time, but their intuition will always remember. That's why deceiving an INFJ is never worth it. Because when you lose their trust, you lose something irreplaceable, a kind of love, wisdom, and loyalty that only the rarest souls ever get to experience. When an INFJ realizes they've been deceived, what follows is not just hurt. It's a quiet unraveling of everything they once believed about you and about themselves. They begin to see every past interaction through a different lens, noticing signs they once brushed aside out of love or loyalty. The kindness that once blinded them to your flaws now becomes a piercing clarity. They start to remember every inconsistency, every subtle shift in your tone, every unexplained silence. And suddenly, it all makes sense. That realization is devastating because INFJs are not only mourning your lie, but also the version of themselves that trusted you so completely. What many people don't understand about INFJs is that deception doesn't only damage their trust, it affects their spiritual and psychological alignment. INFJs are guided by an inner sense of harmony between truth, purpose, and emotional authenticity. When someone they love deceives them, that balance is thrown into chaos. They start to feel disoriented, as though their inner compass, normally so precise, has been tampered with. It takes them time to realign because deception shakes their belief in the goodness of people. This is why INFJs often isolate themselves after discovering a lie. They need solitude to heal, to recalibrate their intuition, and to restore their faith in human sincerity. Another reason deception cuts so deeply for INFJs is their gift of empathy. They naturally absorb other people's emotions like sponges. When they are deceived, the pain is multiplied because they feel not only the betrayal, but also the emotional tension of the one who lied. It's a strange, paradoxical experience. They can feel your guilt, your shame, your inner conflict, and that makes it even harder for them to simply hate you. Their empathy won't let them turn completely cold, yet their moral compass won't let them excuse what you did. This emotional tug-of-war is tormenting for an INFJ. They will wrestle silently with their compassion and their disappointment until one finally overpowers the other. And when disappointment wins, that's when they let go for good. INFJs are also protectors by nature. They instinctively take care of those they love, often prioritizing others' needs above their own. When you deceive an INFJ, you're not just betraying a person, you're betraying a guardian spirit. They gave you their protection, their guidance, and their emotional labor, believing you valued it. The realization that you used their loyalty as a shield to hide deceit is one of the deepest wounds you can inflict. It teaches them to protect themselves instead, and that shift changes their entire outlook on relationships. They become more selective, more discerning, less open. What you take away from them is their innocence and love, their ability to believe wholeheartedly without suspicion. There's also a silent kind of justice that follows an INFJ after deception. They may never confront you publicly or expose your lies, but life often has a way of proving them right. INFJs carry a quiet aura of truth that tends to reveal falsehood naturally. Over time, those who deceive them often find themselves exposed without the INFJ lifting a finger. It's not revenge. It's the inevitable unfolding of truth, something INFJs trust deeply. They understand that dishonesty is like a shadow. No matter how far it runs, the light eventually finds it. Deceiving an INFJ also destroys something powerful, their vision of you. INFJs don't just see people as they are, they see them as they could be. When they love you, they build an ideal of who you are at your best. They see potential, depth, and goodness even when you don't. But deception shatters that image completely. Once the illusion breaks, they can't put it back together. The disappointment is not only in what you did, but in who you chose not to be. They grieve the potential version of you that could have grown with them in honesty and trust. That grief can linger far longer than anger ever could. INFJs also experience deception as a spiritual betrayal. For them, relationships are not random. They are deeply spiritual connections meant for growth, understanding, and purpose. When someone deceives them, it feels like that sacred purpose has been corrupted. They start to question the divine meaning behind the bond. Was this connection real? Was it meant to teach me something painful? And once they find their answer, they detach not only emotionally but spiritually. They may pray for you, forgive you quietly, even wish you well, but they'll never intertwine their spirit with yours again. INFJs rarely express the full extent of their emotions outwardly. Their pain often goes unnoticed because they suffer in silence. They will smile, act composed, and continue their day as if nothing happened. But inside, there's a storm raging. This internalization makes their healing process much slower. They will overthink, replay conversations, analyze every detail, and search for closure that may never come. The lie becomes an emotional echo that lingers long after the relationship has ended. It takes months, sometimes years, for them to fully purge the emotional residue of that deception. They also have a memory that never forgets emotional truths. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how your deception made them feel. Long after the event, they can recall the exact emotional temperature of the moment they discovered your lie. The shock, the heaviness in their chest, the quiet realization that the world they trusted just shifted. This vivid emotional memory makes it impossible for them to look at you without remembering that sting of betrayal. You may have moved on, but to them, that memory remains as a quiet scar. Deceiving them also ruins your credibility permanently. INFJs see people through the lens of patterns. Once they've identified you as someone capable of deceit, every future action will be scrutinized. Even if you speak the truth, they will hear it with doubt. Even if you show remorse, they will see caution instead of sincerity. It's not because they want to punish you. It's because their mind has reclassified you as unsafe. And when an INFJ decides someone is unsafe, no amount of charm, apology, or proof can reverse that decision easily. When you deceive them, you don't just lose their trust. You alter their heart. You turn a deeply loving, open soul into someone who second-guesses love itself. You make them colder, not because they want to be, but because the warmth they once offered was burned by betrayal. In trying to deceive them, you might think you've won something temporary, but in truth, you've lost something eternal. A connection that could have been one of the purest, most loyal, and most transformative experiences of your life. Deception changes the way they love. not just you, but everyone that comes after you. Once they've experienced betrayal, they become more analytical and less trusting of emotional expressions. They start testing people subtly, observing not words but actions. Their heart, once open and receptive, becomes guarded and cautious. The tragic irony is that the INFJ's love, when untouched by deceit, is one of the most healing forces you could ever experience. But once betrayed, that love becomes selective, measured, and sometimes even withdrawn from the world entirely. By deceiving them, you rob not only yourself of their affection, but you also rob the world of their uninhibited warmth. When INFJs love someone, they become a refuge, a place where you can be your truest self without fear of judgment. They listen deeply, care fiercely, and absorb your emotional chaos until you feel calm again. But deception contaminates that sanctuary. It's like pouring poison into a well. Once they discover the lie, that safe place turns into a wasteland of confusion and disappointment. And when they withdraw their emotional safety from you, it leaves a void that no one else can easily fill. You'll feel the loss of their presence, even in silence. The absence of their empathy feels louder than their voice ever did. Another reason deception should never be used against an INFJ is that they never fully recover from it in the way others might. Yes, they heal. Yes, they forgive. But INFJs carry emotional imprints. The lessons remain etched in their soul. That means every future relationship will be filtered through that lens of caution. The lie you told becomes a permanent part of their emotional DNA, shaping how they interpret kindness, love, and promises. In many cases, the INFJ's future partners end up dealing with the walls that your deception built. In that sense, the damage spreads beyond you. It affects every heart that comes after yours. INFJs are not only intuitive, but also deeply reflective, which means they'll spend endless nights trying to make sense of your deception. They'll replay every detail, not to hate you, but to understand why you did what you did. Their empathy won't let them see you purely as a villain. They'll search for your reasons, your pain, your triggers. But this mental spiraling often leads to exhaustion. They start realizing that some people lie not because of circumstance, but because deceit is part of their nature. That realization marks a breaking point. It's when the INFJ stops trying to understand you and starts focusing on protecting their peace. When they reach that point, there's no coming back. They will never again allow you that kind of emotional access.